the Ron Paul system, every business, whether you're a huge billion-dollar corporation or a small business, you're gonna get the same rights, and it's gonna be just as easy for a small business to get licensed and able to do business as it is now for the big corporations.
What are you talking about? License? What are you talking about? The federal government imposes some onerous license requirement? No, it requires you to file for your taxes, and yes, that's the requirement. Yeah, that you have to pay your fucking employees. So yeah, all right, you want to get rid of that. That's the big onerous thing, is that you have to pay employees. Okay, so we get rid of that. No more minimum wage, no more obligation to pay health care or Social Security benefits. That's all you're talking about here. That's the only thing inhibiting any business. You're just so full of shit. Ugh.
And as far as pollution goes, when we start to respect private property more, it's a lot harder to pollute the environment, because when we have public commons that nobody really lives on, nobody feels responsible for taking care of, it's a lot easier for them to become polluted. It's a lot easier for corporations to pour out their trash into this public space without anybody noticing or without anybody getting up in arms about it. But if more land is privately owned, of course someone's going to be pissed off if the water source, the river running through their land, is polluted, or the air is smoggy.
I mean, how silly are your arguments going to get? What, you're saying there's too much public land? I mean, in most communities, there's just too little public land. There aren't enough fucking parks. Everything is owned by somebody. Everybody's building mansions on all this, pristine land. What a pile of shit. And the whole idea that, say, Ted Turner right now owns millions and millions of acres. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he owns it, because I don't think he's going to do anything horrible with it, but he owns millions of acres of land. And you're telling me that he's able to scrutinize if anybody's dumping any pollutants on all that land? That he's a better caretaker of that land than the federal government would be? I mean, what a pile of shit. You pollute the fucking federal government land, you're going to fucking really be in trouble, because, yeah, the federal government has a free ride in the court system. I mean, they get listened to by judges. They got to, it zooms right through for them. But goddamn, a private citizen trying to sue to get fucking pollution off their fucking property would be a big fucking hassle. And then they got to figure out who did it, and they got to go through all this other crap, and they're not going to have the power of the EPA to do anything. It's just silly. This is just a silly fucking argument. And the whole fucking reason why pollution ends up on public land is because the assholes know if they put it on their own private land, they're going to get fucked by the federal government. It's going to come and ruin their business and say, you fucking polluting this land, you're going to pay to clean every bit of it up. And so they dump on public land just so they can avoid accountability. But you'll just do away with the accountability so they can fucking buy a hunk of land, buy 100,000 acres somewhere, and they can pollute the shit out of it. And then they can just run away from the problem, and I'll say, no, the corporation owned it. The corporation owned it. The corporation's bankrupt. It's somebody else's problem. We got our money. We got it the fuck out, and now you can clean up the mess. I mean, it's just so, this is so unrealistic. This nonsense.
So all of these fears are just unfounded, and it's a prejudice that it's sort of based on a straw man that we've never had the kind of system that Ron Paul wants to put in.
Of course we did. First it was called slavery in this country, and then after slavery we had all kinds of, involuntary servitude, essentially. But then we had child labor, and we had all kinds of big giant businesses running this fucking country, the big railroads, the big oil, the big banks, and they bankrupted the country at one point. And what do you think the whole New Deal thing, what do you think that all came out of? There wasn't any need at all. No, most of the country wasn't out of work and in big fucking trouble, because of this corporate theft. This freedom to be, the barons. Where do you think this word came from, baron? It's just so stupid to have this fucking argument. We've never done it before. Of course we've done it before. And that's where we came from. That's what the whole fucking revolution was about, is getting rid of the oppression of this fucking monarchy. And that's all you're saying we go back to, the same exact thing. What in your proposal stops monarchy from happening? Tell me, explain to me, what stops Bill Gates's and other zillionaires from eventually owning everything? What stops it? What stops 1% of the population from owning 90% of the country?
It was based on freedom and liberty and the idea that people should be able to do as they please as long as they don't harm others, and that the government isn't supposed to be our parent, isn't supposed to be somehow responsible for taking care of us.
Protecting civil rights really isn't taking care of us. It's just a basic fundamental function of a civilized society. You know, you're just advocating if people do what they want, then what they will do is they won't sell property to undesirables. Okay, so undesirables won't have any of these rights you're speaking of. All right, they won't have a right to live in communities. They won't have a right to even walk through some communities, and that's going to be the America you're going to create. That's the America you want, and it sucks. It's disgusting. It just insults intelligence in general and insults whatever intelligence you have personally.
A lot of the negative things I'm hearing about Ron Paul's policies, you haven't obviously listened to the man speak.
Well, I don't know how I avoided it, considering I, you know, provided direct quotes out of his own mouth. And I didn't even do the worst quotes. I mean, like I said, you can go back a few years and you'll find all kinds of very scary quotes. This man he's just a neocon playing liberal. I mean, you know, libertarian. He's playing the game. And the rhetoric is, yes, let's get rid of the federal government, only because he wants to go back to states' rights. He wants to go back to states controlling population. So he's just as much of a control freak as any of them. He's just as much interested in imposing religious dogma on the mind of man as any of them. And he just wants to do it through this little sneaky state mechanism rather than the federal government. You know, so he's just playing you. You're being played, and you're a dupe and a fool. And the fact that you can't see it is, you know, you know, what kind? There's no other word for it. Imbecile. You're a fucking imbecile.